Welcome to Running Shoe and Training Talk for May. Wow, it's already May 2024. There's a lot to get into, so let's just jump in. Let's start with some channel updates, and the first one is I have ended the Sagasu Running podcast. As of the recording of this video, the podcast is completely gone from this channel and all podcasting services. Now, I made a community post about why. I posted that last week, but the short of it is, when I started the podcast last September, I didn't think there was a place on this channel for that type of non-running shoe tech review product analysis content. But I've learned over that time, especially since the fall of last year, that there is a place for me to talk about that stuff. There now is a community on this channel. That community, those of you probably watching this video, are interested in what I'm doing, what I'm thinking outside of my review and analysis formats. And there is space for other type of content on this channel. Case in point, my last video, laying bricks. I'll put a link in the description if you haven't watched that. That's a training video, but it's more of a run motivation video. And it's more of something that I would have saved for the podcast prior as opposed to doing a video on this channel. But as I'm developing as a creator, I'm finding that there's a lot more I can do in a 10 or 15 minute video on this channel opposed to a 30 or 40 minute monologue in a podcast format. I think I can make more compelling content while it's still long form, but it's more YouTube focused as opposed to podcast focused. The second big thing is I wanted the Sagasu Running podcast to be very broad. I wanted to talk about a lot of the other side of running. But I realized as I was planning out future episodes, whether they were conversations with people that were interesting to me or they were just more monologues, I was really limited because I had to kind of constrain it within the running space because it was a running podcast. But I don't want to do that. I want to go broader than that. There's a lot of other things I'm interested in. So the podcast was just too narrow. A lot of the content I can do on the channel, and that's what I'm doing. Case in point, the last video. So nothing's going to change on this channel. In fact, there'll probably be more content on this channel intermixed with all the tech and the reviews and all that sort of stuff. And as I said in the community post, I'm working on another project, something else. And I'll have more to say about that this summer. And if you're interested, stay tuned because I definitely will be talking about that a bit on this channel. The other big change on this channel is, as of the last video, I am now publishing in 4K. Which means you get to see me in 4K glory and you get to see my shaving mishaps in 4K glory as well. Now, the reason for this change is that I have not been happy with the quality of my videos in the YouTube auto format, essentially. So if you just go onto my channel, watch a video, chances are YouTube's going to serve it up to you in just auto, which is going to be 720p in their lesser codec, the codec that it just doesn't look as good as the main codec they use for 1080 and 4K type of content. So me moving to 4K, which is something I just didn't think I needed to do because you don't need to see me in 4K, but what that's allowing is my content to now default in auto to 1080p, which was the max resolution that I was publishing prior in HD. So for those of you who want the 4K content, it's now there. For those of you that are just watching this with the auto player, whatever YouTube is selecting for you based on your bandwidth, you're probably going to get better quality videos. And that's really what I'm after. From a production standpoint, it meant that I had to recreate a bunch of assets and a bunch of workflows, really to scale everything up. But all that's done now. So moving forward, I will be publishing in 4K going onward. And lastly, this series, Running Shoe and Training Talk, I've said I've never really liked that name, but now I'm going to change the name to just Shoe Talk. It's going to be the same sort of stuff. I'm just going to talk about shoes in an off-the-cuff format, kind of what I'm running in, filling in some blanks beyond the reviews that I do on the channel, and just, talk about shoes in that way. Any kind of training updates I'm going to do as standalone videos, and I've already done that. I did my 5K plan video, which was great. And I'll do more videos like that. And any kind of channel updates, I'll generally do those as community posts, or if it's something that's really important for me to communicate to the channel, I'll do a video on that specifically. At some point in the coming weeks, I'm going to go back and change all the thumbnails for these Running Shoe and Training Talk videos and just label them Shoe Talk. And moving forward, they'll be exclusively focused on Shoe Talk. But for the previous ones that I've done this year, they'll be the mix of everything I've been doing with channel updates, training updates, and shoe updates. But moving forward, they're going to be shoe updates on a monthly basis. And I think probably people are going to be more excited about that than hear me ramble on about all the stuff that I talk about otherwise. Let's talk about shoes now, because that's what these videos are going to be about, right? So April was a lot of review content. I did the Saucony Endorphin series there. I did a lot of comparisons. It was very review focused content in April. May hasn't been, I haven't done any reviews this month. I've tried to clear out a bunch of other content I had on my content roadmap because I knew there weren't going to be any reviews I was really that interested in May, but June is going to be absolutely crazy. There are some amazing shoes that are really important for me to talk about that are coming out in June. So there's going to be a lot of reviews, a lot of comparisons or versus videos, and a lot of other stuff in between that. So June is going to be a very, very busy month. But before we get to June, I want to talk about the shoes that I'm probably not going to be reviewing on this channel. And all of these shoes are shoes I've either expressed interest in previous videos or people have been asking me about. And the first one is the Saucony Triumph 22. Now, I was initially interested in this shoe. However, based on the reviews that I've seen about this shoe, I know it's not a shoe that I'm going to want to run in. I would maybe get it for review, but then I'd probably never touch it again. Additionally, I just can't find this shoe here in Taiwan. The one place that I can find Saucony shoes is really just the Saucony Endorphin series and maybe one or two other models. But that store, which is a running store, it's not even a Saucony store, I asked about the Triumph if they're going to get it, and they said they've never actually stocked the Triumph before there, so they're unsure if they're going to get it. They said they will look into it, but I'm not going to hold my breath on that. So Triumph is a shoe I know I'm not going to like. Power on PB, if it wasn't firmer, is going to be way too soft because it was too soft for me in the Endorphin Speed primarily. The Endorphin Pro was saved by Power on HG, but I know I'm not going to run in that shoe, so I'm going to pass on the Triumph 22. There's a ton of other people that have covered it. They've done some good reviews on it. The reviews, at best, are very mixed on that shoe. The next shoe that a lot of people are asking about in the comments, if I'm going to talk about it, is the New Balance Rebel V4. Now, if you've watched these videos over the past couple months, you know that that's been a bit of an ongoing saga for me. And the short of it is, when the shoe came out about 2 months ago now, I went to the New Balance store, I tried on the Rebel V4 and the SC Elite V4, and I hated both of them. I hated the fit, I hated the upper, I hated the foam, I hated how wide, I hated how mushy they were. It was just a hard pass for me. But I figured, especially with the Rebel V4, that it would be a very popular shoe, so I could come back and get it whenever I wanted to. If I had a gap in, my review cycle or content on the channel, I could then cover it. So I left the store. I didn't buy it. I had a bunch of other shoes to run in at the time. Didn't get it. Went back to the New Balance store a couple weeks later, only to find that now we only have wide versions of most New Balance shoes in the stores here in Taiwan, which is completely insane for a shoe like the Rebel V4, which is already extremely obnoxiously wide. The fact that I can only buy a wide version of it is just completely non-starter for me. That is a no-go. So I don't like the Rebel V4. I don't like how it fits. Again, the upper was just sloppy to me. The foam is way too soft. And the biggest problem I had with it, and the reason I'm not going to make a video about it, even though I have a lot to say, is I have experience with the Rebel series. I ran a lot in the 1 and 2, a little bit in the 3, but mostly the 1 and 2. And to me, a Rebel is a lightweight, very nimble shoe. The Rebel V4, even though I'm not running it, I've just walked around and kind of jogged in place in the store. And I did try on a non-wide version because for whatever reason, the first couple of days the shoe was available here in Taiwan, there were a couple standard width versions, but they're all gone now and they're not coming back, it seems. Whenever I ask at the store, they just say they're not going to get them. I don't know why. But a Rebel to me is a very nimble shoe. The Rebel V4 is anything but nimble because it's so mushy, it's so squishy, it's so wide. I don't know why they have to make that midsole, especially the contact patch of that shoe, so extremely wide. It's not a Rebel anymore. It's just a shoe that I do not like. And based on that and my experience trying on the SC Elite V4, I just do not like the direction that New Balance has taken in 2024. So I'm going to choose not to really talk about them anymore. So There won't be a Rebel V4 video on this channel because I'm just not interested at this point, because there's much more interesting shoes for me to talk about now moving into June of 2024. Another New Balance shoe that I have expressed interest in reviewing was the 880 V14. Now again, same problem. We only have wide versions of this shoe here in Taiwan. I didn't even bother trying it on. I just had it in my hand and felt it. Just looking at it, I know it's not a shoe I'm gonna run in, that I'm really gonna be interested in. I'm still buying shoes on this channel. No brand is sending me stuff, though that may change in June, but I'm still buying shoes. So if I'm going to buy a shoe, it's going to be a shoe that I think I have a good chance of actually being interested in. I'm willing to take a chance on a shoe and be surprised or my feelings confirm, like the Asics Nimbus, for example. I ran in that. I knew I wouldn't like it, but I wanted to try it. I tried it. I'm happy I did. Wasn't for me. It went in the donation bin. But something like the 880 V14 or the Rebel V4, I know I'm not going to like them. I'm not going to use them. So I'm just not going to pick those up. But the other problem is I can only get wide versions of both, and that's completely a non-starter for me. Now, a shoe I was kind of excited about is the Brooks Ghost 16. However, I went to the Brooks store, tried this on, and two problems. One, the DNA Loft V3 foam was just too mushy. Now, I like DNA Loft V2, the foam that's in the Ghost Max. I think that's a nice mix of cushion and structure. It's not too squishy, it's very cushioned, but it's also not too soft. DNA Loft V3, being their super critical version of that foam, is just too mushy now. It's too squishy. So I really didn't like the way the foam felt. But the bigger problem with the Ghost 16 is that 12 mil drop. Putting that shoe on, it was aggressive. I did not like how that felt. And it's made worse by how your foot actually sinks into DNA Loft V3. It's not the squishiest foam. We're not talking Zoom X here, but it just feels like that 12 mil drop is accentuated by the foam of the shoe. I'm not going to run in a 12 mil drop shoe in 2024. That is completely unnecessary. If the Brooks Ghost 16 had a 8 mil drop or a 10 mil drop, I totally would have picked it up and given it a shot. But at 12 mil, it's not going to happen. So there won't be a Brooks Ghost 16 review on this channel. Moving on, the Hoka Skyward X. Now, people have been asking me if I'm going to cover this shoe. The answer is no. There's no reason for me to cover this shoe because it's exactly everything that I dislike in a shoe. I really do not like these extreme stack shoes. I have no interest in running in a shoe with 48 mil of foam in the heel. I just don't. I'm sorry. Also, based on the reviews that I have watched for the Skyward X, it's everything I don't like in a shoe. It's super squishy. It's kind of all over the place. It's not really good for anything other than maybe some slow running, and it's really heavy. I'm just not interested. And there's a lot of complexity in that shoe. Now, something like the Asics Super Blast, which is also one of those really high stack shoes, my biggest complaint about that shoe is that there is too much foam in that shoe. That you don't need all that foam in that shoe, and it would run just as good if it was lower stack. But the Asics Super Blast is a very simple shoe. It's a very elegantly simple shoe. It's very nice to run in. It feels really great on the foot. I did go try the Skyward X, and it just feels like a big block on my foot. Nothing I'm ever going to run in. Again, I'm buying these shoes, and if I know I'm not going to run in the shoe after I review it, I'm not even going to bother with that. Now, again, if Hoka, New Balance, Brooks, if any of these brands want to send me shoes and want to work with me and get me in that pre-release review cycle, I'm happy to try these shoes on. But that's a very different prospect than me going and buying all of these shoes. Now, I will say this about Hoka. I am very interested in a lot of what Hoka is doing because there is a lot of crazy ideas. And the Skyward X is a very Hoka shoe, very much like the Cielo X1 is. They're trying a lot of interesting tech, a lot of interesting plate dynamics in that shoe. And I find that really fascinating. I don't want to run in it though. So I am following Hoka. I'm going to watch what the brand does. And from a technical standpoint, I will definitely cover the brand. And if there is something I'm interested in running in, I will pick it up. But the Skyward X is a complete pass for me. And that brings me to the Mizuno Neo Vista, which is a shoe that a lot of people are also asking in the comments what I'm going to do or if I'm going to cover that shoe. And the answer is probably no. More because Mizuno is very popular here in Taiwan, but these sort of crazy performance shoes that everyone is excited about Mizuno in the West, I've never seen them here. I know they're here. There were a couple influencers, Taiwanese influencers that were promoting them, but they're nowhere that I've seen. So access to that shoe is pretty limited for me. I don't really know where to go get it. But additionally, all the reviews I've seen of the shoe, again, it's very much a shoe that I will not like. Very soft, kind of heavy, just not what I want in a shoe. Not the type of shoe that I'm ever going to run in. So I am paying attention to Mizuno now. I am looking at what they're doing and I'm very curious about what they're doing, but so far there's nothing I'm interested in trying. Again, if Mizuno wants to get me in the review cycle, I'm happy to try these shoes, but as far as me going out and buying them, knowing I'm not going to run in them, I'm not interested. And lastly, the Nike Alphafly 3, which has probably been the biggest, longest story arc on this channel. I still don't have one. They're still not here in Taiwan. I know they've been released in small batches here. I did fail the Alphafly lottery twice already, but I've never ever seen a Alphafly 3 here in Taiwan. I've not seen them at any runner's feet. I haven't seen any of the Taiwanese influencers in the running space talk about them. They're just not here. Just point blank, they're not here. Now, I may be spending part of the summer in Japan, which means it should be easier for me to maybe get one. We'll see about that. But I will cover the Alphafly 3 at some point as soon as I can get one. It's just at this point when I can get one. So Nike, if you're watching this, which I doubt you are, but if you are, reach out to me. We'll figure it out. Now, with all that out of the way, let's talk about shoes I've actually been running in this past month. Now, I put this image up in the last video in this series, and I also talked a lot about this in my 5K training plan video. I'll put a link in the description if you're interested. But these three shoes, the Supernova Rise, the Takumi Sen 10, and the Adios Pro 3, really have been the bulk of what I've been running in this month, and I've really been loving them. But what I've actually really been running in the past month is more like this. Now, the Supernova Rise is still the easy run, long run shoe. The Takumi Sen is still what I'm doing workouts in, but I'm also swapping in the Mach 6 from Hoka. And on the faster stuff, or like real threshold running, I've mostly been spending a lot of time in the Metaspeed Edge Paris, finding that super fast. I actually haven't been running a lot in the Adios Pro 3 over the past 2 weeks. Starting with the Supernova Rise, this really has been my go-to shoe for all easy running and long running. The long running right now in a 5K build is probably max 16K or about 10 miles. That's the longest I've been running. In fact, my long run this week was 14K, so I'm not even really always running that. But for the 3 or 4 easy runs I'm doing per week, this has been my go-to shoe, and it does it beautifully. This shoe is such an outlier in the space right now because this is a cushion trainer, but it's not a max stack, heavily rockered shoe. This is a fairly low stack with a fairly traditional geometry, and it's beautiful. In fact, at the end of May of 2024, this is probably the prime candidate for shoe of the year for me this year in 2024. It is that good. Now, we have some big, heavy hitters coming out over the next few months and the remainder of the year. So we'll see if this stays in that top slot. But this shoe is a beautiful shoe. I highly recommend it. I am nearing 200 miles now on this shoe, so I will have my long-term review on the channel in the next week or two of this shoe. So stay tuned if you're interested in that. Moving on to the Takumi Sen 10, I've talked a lot about this shoe already. This is a beautiful update. I'm loving this shoe. For 400s, 400 repeats, this has been my go-to shoe for that. I also have done some threshold running in this shoe, but most of my threshold running has been in this shoe, the Metaspeed Edge Paris. And in fact, back-to-back days, I did the same threshold run in both of these shoes, and I got about the same times. However, it was considerably easier in this shoe because of the geometry, because of this rocker in the forefoot and the stiffness of the plate. This shoe helps me roll forward, where this shoe is putting a lot more emphasis on me to put in the effort and really do the work. So the training effect of this shoe is much higher than this shoe, but both these shoes are equally as fast. So if I had to pick for a race, I probably would pick this shoe. And speaking of this shoe, I've been doing all of my threshold running in this shoe, mostly because I want to put a lot more miles or kilometers onto the shoe, because I want to get this shoe to 100 miles so I can do my full long-term review. But I've also been really impressed with this shoe. A couple things to note. This shoe has changed since I first took it out of the box. This foam has softened up on the shoe, though it's not squishy. You do not sink into this foam like, say, Zoom X. You're still up on a platform. But this shoe is definitely softened up. It has molded to my foot. And this upper, this race upper, Asics has the best race uppers that fit the best and lock the foot down the best, full stop. And this race upper is absolutely outstanding. So now that the shoe is molded to my foot, and this race upper being so good, once this is on my foot, it completely disappears. And it just keeps me rolling forward, propels me forward. And I'm finding my efficiency in this shoe to be very high. Now that I've gotten used to this shoe, it is much higher than the Vaporfly 3. And like I said, I'm trying to get this shoe to 100 miles. I have it at about 55 miles right now. So I will have a longer term review of this shoe this month, and I'll talk more about that and how this shoe now compares to the Vaporfly 3 for me. Moving on to the Hoka Mach 6, I have struggled a bit with this shoe, but I just kind of figured out what this shoe is, at least for me. And this is a workout shoe. I have been doing 1K repeats or threshold running in this shoe, and it's beautiful. It's a beautiful non-plated workout shoe. It's a very simple shoe. It's kind of the anti-Hoka shoe right now because it's a very simple midsole. It's only one piece of supercritical EVA, and it doesn't have a lot of the crazy tech that Hoka seems to be putting in all their shoes right now. And it's been a very good non-plated workout option, but I'm not going to be running in this shoe anymore. Now, I'm going to do my 50-mile review, which will be my final review, which will be the next video on this channel. So stay tuned. That will be coming out in the next couple of days. And I'll talk more about why I won't be running in the shoe. But it comes down to the fit. This is a Hoka. It has a lot of the same Hoka fit problems that I've always had with Hoka. And I spent a lot of time in Hokas years ago. And the reason I stopped running in Hokas was because of the fit. This has all the same issues. So I'll talk more about that. But this is a beautiful non-plated workout shoe. The other big thing is there's a couple shoes coming out this summer, one of them coming out in June, that is also a non-plated, very simple workout shoe. And that's going to replace this shoe completely. And I'll talk more about that when I review it in June. And lastly, the Adios Pro 3. I haven't spent much time in this shoe in the past 2.5 weeks or so, but that's going to change this week. I'm going to be doing more threshold running in this because I want to compare this shoe in my data to this shoe and really see where these two shoes fall together. But I will say that the foam feels very similar between these two shoes. FF Turbo Plus is, I would say, softer than Lightstrike Pro, but Lightstrike Pro is still more energetic than FF Turbo Plus. These are both outstanding shoes, and I'm looking forward to putting some more threshold miles in on this shoe because, like I said, now that I've found a sock that doesn't destroy my foot with this upper, I just love running in this shoe. And I find this shoe to be very stable, very propulsive, very rolly, and it's a joy to run in. This shoe has really converted me to liking firmer foams over Zoom X from Nike. I really like Lightstrike Pro, and I really like FF Turbo Plus. I'm liking firmer, more responsive foams. And these are two of the best ones you can buy right now. Thank you for making it to the end of the video. If you find this content useful, consider subscribing. You'll see more content from me pop up in your feed. If not, drop a like on this video because it helps this channel continue to grow, which I always appreciate. And with that, I'll catch you in the next one.